Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Meta's AI infrastructure is bringing jobs to local communities like Los Lunas, New Mexico. Phil, who grew up in Los Lunas, has seen the positive impact that Meta's ongoing $600 billion investment in American jobs and infrastructure will bring.
I had to travel for work, missing moments I can't get back. Then Meta opened a data center and brought new jobs. Now, I don't worry about missing out anymore.
Learn more about Meta's investment at meta.com/building America.
Hi there, and welcome to the Explaining History podcast. I'm diving back today into one of my favourite books, KL by Nicholas Foshman. And I think one of the really important reasons for looking at this book is that when we talk about the Holocaust, and it is obviously such a kind of hegemonic kind of part of modern history discourse. It is, without being kind of prurient, it's the thing everybody is perhaps most aware of when they consider the kind of the history of the 20th century and the various sort of atrocities and crises of the 20th century. The Holocaust wasn't always like that in terms of public consciousness, and it explodes from the 1960s onwards. In the 40s and 50s, I think we talked about this a lot. There is a positively kind of repression of Holocaust knowledge and memory and discourse and debate for a host of reasons. Many tied up with the kind of realities of the Cold War, the division of and the rehabilitation of the division of Germany and the rehabilitation of West Germany. The fact that American Jews were very mindful of what had happened to European Jews. Initially thought that not being too vocal about things and keeping your head down and not rocking the boat in a time of Red Scares and McCarthyism, they could very easily see that tilting towards anti-Semitism, and I think they were right to have those concerns. So particularly, there was a lot of reticence by the main Jewish civic organizations in the late 1940s, particularly to embrace Israel. There was no indication by 1947, just on the eve of the establishment of Israel, that necessarily Israel might fall into the Western camp. Stalin had put out all sorts of feelers towards the Zionist movement, and had American Jews, the fear was, had American Jews embraced Israel and it had become a Soviet satellite, things may not have boded well for them, and under the kind of the heightened paranoid conditions of the Cold War. And you need to see the arrests, the kind of the coded anti-Semitism behind the arrests of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg later on, to kind of observe where those anxieties might be. So we went from repression to, by the 1990s, the kind of the Holocaust becoming this singular in public consciousness, almost the singular atrocity of the 20th century, which of course it's not. It is one part of a century of genocide, of which we've talked about many of the genocides and mass killings of the 20th century. But it's one that's the kind of the mechanics of the Holocaust still produce a great deal of kind of confusion. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was the nature of the different kinds of camps, and the victimhood of the Jews, the Jewish prisoners within them. So we're going to dive in to the book and look at the chapter Holocaust on page 294. Jews in the KL. KL being the camp system. In the early years of the Second World War, the concentration camps had stood on the sidelines of Nazi anti-Jewish policy. This sounds odd to our ears, but the concentration camps and the death camps in Poland were not the same thing. They were not really part of the same system. The concentration camps had been established for different purposes, and yet during the kind of the pressures of the war, they become sort of folded into the wider functioning of the Holocaust. So in the early years of the Second World War, the concentration camp had stood on the sidelines of Nazi anti-Jewish policy. The present was largely about ghettos and forced labour camps, and the future about deadly reservations. Concentration camps, by contrast, were marginal. Even when the Third Reich began to move towards the systematic extermination of European Jews, there was no signs yet that the KL would become more prominent anytime soon. Their peripheral role was reflected in prisoner numbers. By early 1942, Jews made up fewer than 5,000 of the 80,000 KL inmates, which is telling. And the reason for that, obviously, is because the Jews are being murdered in large numbers elsewhere. Most of the KL, most of the German concentration camps are on German soil. And the Nazis explicitly don't want a genocide to happen on German soil. The policy is really a kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's about these things happening far, far away. So there is plausible deniability. The Nazis were very conscious of public morale, and they knew that most of the population, there was widespread anti-Semitism within the German population, but the desire for an industrial, mechanized genocide, there's not much actual explicit desire for that. It's not to absolve the wide swathes of anti-Semitic attitudes in Germany at all. But when people are presented with the realities of, the systematic destruction of an entire people, they don't like that very much. So the whole point about the Holocaust was it is done in places like Poland, where literally anything can happen. There is no system of governance there at all, other than that which in the general government under Hans Frank. On January the 20th, 1942, a crucial conference took place in the leafy suburb of Wannsee. At lunchtime, a group of senior party and state officials gathered to coordinate the Nazi final solution under the overall control of the RSHA. The meeting was chaired by Reinhard Heydrich, who laid out the general direction. Some aspects were still in flux, but the overall aim was now clear. European Jews would be concentrated in the occupied East and murdered there, either straight away or by working them to death. The vision of annihilation through labour was an important element of these plans. As Heydrich put it at Wannsee, according to the minutes compiled by Adolf Eichmann, the RSHA desk officer who managed the deportations from Western and Central Europe, large labour gangs would be formed in the East for heavy road construction. Undoubtedly, a large number of them will drop out through natural wastage. The Wannsee Conference is full of euphemisms: resettlement in the East, natural wastage, all of this kind of language, which is explicitly genocidal. And why? I mean, why do they do that? Is it that they were mindful that perhaps if they lost the war, one day they'd all be on trial? I don't think so. I don't think they were thinking like that. I think that this, as a kind of a bureaucratic system, there is meticulous note-taking, but there has to be a conspiratorial element to it, where nothing is said in the open, and nobody's name is attached to what is really being proposed. Though, you don't have to be a kind of a master investigator to understand and read the subtext. I don't think that any of them were remotely bothered by what they were proposing. I don't think it troubled anyone's conscience. I think they were probably aware that the German population at large did not share or was not explicitly genocidal. There are all sorts of books, pretty silly ones, like Daniel Goldhagen's Hitler's Willing Executioners, which essentially say, well, they voted for Hitler, blah, 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 blah. And it's just a kind of lazy argument. I think what Wannsee indicates to us is that people like Heydrich and Eichmann were well aware that if you say these kinds of things out loud, it will actually make the process of doing them much more difficult. So you have to shroud them in euphemistic language, the kind of language where you can just about give yourself cover, saying, well, no, they're building roads. And, well, doesn't everybody, suffer a bit and maybe die a bit when they're building roads? That kind of thing. But because lots of people in Germany rarely got to see the reality of the camps, it was a lot easier. That said, Richard J. Evans, the eminent professor of German history, describes the Holocaust as an open secret by 1942-43. Basically, anybody that wants to know about the Holocaust can know about it in Germany, because there are so many German people, military and civilian, involved in it, but no one does want to know. So the possibility to find out was always there. Although the specifics remain vague, there was apparently no place for the concentration camps in these genocidal plans. Now that is interesting. Neither as extermination centres nor as hubs for lethal labour. The KL were not on the agenda at Wannsee, and no representative of the concentration camp system had been invited to the gathering. Why? Why not use this resource that is already there? Again, there could be many reasons. It's that places like Dachau are in the wrong place. If you turned Dachau into a death camp and you have the surrounding area fully in the knowledge that a genocide is happening, it's a lot harder to hide, it's a lot harder to cover up, and it's a lot harder to explain away. Similarly, why don't you use it as a kind of like a staging ground for mass deportations? You know, you could corral Europe's Jews there. Well, a lot of them are being corralled in places like Drancy and Westerbork, and in occupied European countries, and then shipped to the east. So there are a variety of reasons. Within days of the Wannsee Conference, however, SS leaders changed their tune. The trigger, it seems, was the final acceptance that these grandiose settlement plans in the east would never be realised with Soviet POWs. Too few had arrived in the KL, and too many of those were already dead. The SS now looked for replacements and soon found them. Instead of Soviet soldiers, Jews would build the gigantic settlements. So this is ultimately what Auschwitz-Birkenau was going to become. It was going to become essentially a city built on Jewish slave labour. On January the 26th, 1942, just 6 days after Wannsee, Himmler texted Glucks to outline the change in direction. Since telext, of course. Since no more Soviet POWs could be expected in the near future, Himmler explained, he decided to send large numbers of Jews to the KL. Get ready to accommodate 100,000 male Jews and up to 50,000 Jewesses in the KL within the next 4 weeks. The decision to substitute Jews for Soviet POWs was taken impulsively at the top of the Nazi state. And I think that is, again, something that is valuable to observe. It's the impulsivity. Things are going badly wrong in Russia. Okay? Around 1942, things should, by mid-1942, the conquest of Russia should easily have been concluded. So by the Nazi timetable. And the fact that it isn't is a really big problem. And the plans there for rapid settlement of Russia and its economic exploitation, with a view to, within the next 5 years, essentially taking on the Western Allies and defeating them, this again can't happen either. So Timothy Snyder says that out of this kind of chaos, the Holocaust emerges as the Himmler and Goering, their way of trying to sort of salvage what they can from the war, and to present some sort of win. And the final solution goes from being perhaps a post-war initiative to shooting to the top of the agenda during wartime.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. Like, Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
For 25 years, Brightview Senior Living Associates have been committed to creating a vibrant culture and delivering exceptional services, making Brightview a great place to work and live. If you're looking for a rewarding opportunity to serve your local community and grow, we want you to join our team. Brightview Senior Living is growing and actively seeking vibrant associates to join our community teams, including directors, healthcare, activities, hospitality, and dining. Apply today at careers.brightviewseniorliving.com. Equal employment opportunities. Text BV Jobs to 97211 to apply.
When you think of skyrocketing brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, it's easy to credit their success to great products, sleek branding, and brilliant marketing. But here's the overlooked secret. The real magic lies in the engine behind the scenes, the business powering their business. For millions of brands, that engine is Shopify, making selling seamless for them and shopping effortless for us. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Aloe Yoga uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/retail, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/retail to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/retail.
On January the 25th, one day before he informed Glücks, Himmler had evidently discussed the use of Jewish workers with Oswald Pohl. Immediately afterwards, Himmler had apparently raised his plan in the Führer's headquarters. During lunch, Hitler ranted about the need to make Europe free of Jews. If the Jew gets wrecked along the way, I cannot help it. I see only one thing, total annihilation. If they don't go voluntarily, why should I look at a Jew with different eyes than a Russian prisoner? Soon after the meal, Himmler put Heydrich in the picture, calling him in Prague. The note for this call in Himmler's office diary reads, Jews into the KL. SS Camp Inspector Glücks and his men were caught unawares by Himmler's new scheme to exploit Jewish prisoners. After it became evident that the colossal designs for Majdanek could not be achieved with Soviet POWs, the IKL ordered other concentration camps on January 19th, 1942 to send Jewish prisoners fit to work to Majdanek. Just one week later, however, Himmler's sudden message that huge numbers of Jews were on their way from elsewhere forced a volte-face. The IKL managers at Oranienburg immediately abandoned the small-scale transports from other camps to Majdanek and focused instead on preparing the KL system for the mass arrival of Jews from outside. So when Ian Kershaw talks about the chaotic nature of the Nazi regime, it's this sort of thing that he means, that with kind of spontaneous decision making, that is contradictory, often one order often countermands another, and the vision we have of Nazism, which is that of the ordered kind of racial machine, is a bit of an illusion. It's an extreme illusion, actually. Nazism was always like this. It was always a kind of a chaotic a chaotic enterprise, because fascism kind of is really. Fascism is about this kind of need for endless decision making and action and dynamism, and it rarely kind of prevails in the long term over more kind of standardized and boring systems of government. But in this case, we talk a lot about the bureaucratization of the Holocaust, and that is a key part of understanding it. But when you have key decision makers making very impulsive decisions, it determines the way in which the Holocaust is shaped. But Himmler, writes Nicholas Fashman, had jumped the gun when he announced the imminent influx of up to 150,000 Jewish prisoners. Not for the first time, his ambitions outstripped the SS and police abilities, and 2 months passed before the first transports got underway. During this time, several key decisions were made, one concerning the victims. Initially, Himmler had targeted German Jews for immediate deportation to the KL, but this plan was dropped. Instead, SS attention turned to Jews regardless as fit for work from 2 other countries, Slovakia and France, regarded as fit for work from Slovakia and France. Meanwhile, the IKL confirmed the destination for the forthcoming mass deportations, Majdanek and Auschwitz. This was an obvious choice. Both camps had previously been designated for huge numbers of Soviet POWs, as Jews would replace them as forced workers. SS logic dictated that they would be taken to the same camps. In practice, Auschwitz became the primary destination for the deportation of Jews from Western and Central Europe because of its greater proximity, better transport links, and superior infrastructure. What would happen at Auschwitz-Birkenau is that the train would stop at Oswiecim, and there'd be like a couple of kilometers route march where the prisoners would be disembarked there and they would route march to the camp. What we popularly see, the image of trains, people getting off of trains in the camp, that only happened from 1944 onwards. A rail spur was built into Auschwitz-Birkenau, and you can see that the famous gate with the watchtower, and the train goes underneath it. And the reason for that is because of I think it's about 500,000 Hungarian Jews who were murdered there in the summer of 1944. The new role of Auschwitz prompted the SS authorities to take two major initiatives towards the end of February 1942. First, it resolved to build a large crematorium at Birkenau, capable of disposing 800 bodies in 24 hours. The plans for a big crematorium were not new. Back in autumn 1941, with an enormous new camp for Soviet POWs scheduled at the Auschwitz complex, SS planners had to decide to erect a high-capacity crematorium in the main camp in order to deal with the anticipated surge in prisoner deaths. This location was now changed to Birkenau. During a local inspection on February the 27th, 1942, by SS construction chief Hans Kammler. Of course, again, there are two, if not three, key Auschwitz sites. There's Auschwitz I, which is in the town of Oswiecim, which is a more it was adapted from the Polish cavalry barracks. Is a more standard kind of concentration camp style prison. There was a crematorium on site, and it was part of a death camp complex. And then there's, but it's much smaller than Auschwitz-Birkenau. And then there's Auschwitz II at Birkenau, and then there's Auschwitz III, which is Monowitz, which was the Buna factory.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. Like, Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
From Adams Morgan to Anacostia Park, we all want safer neighborhoods. But what does real safety mean? Real safety means preventing crime before it happens. By having police work with communities to disrupt cycles of violence. By supporting families with stable housing. And providing more mental health and drug treatment. We know that adding more police and locking up more people doesn't make us safer. Real safety means investing in the things that help prevent crime. Learn more at RealSafetyDC.
Large numbers of Jewish prisoners were expected to arrive at Birkenau soon, and all would eventually die through annihilation through labour. Why haul their corpses all the way back to the main camp, Kammler must have thought, when they could be burned at Birkenau. Second, Auschwitz prepared for the mass influx of women who were part of Himmler's deportation plans. Himmler turned to his in-house experts in female detention in Ravensbrück. He visited the camp on March 3rd, 1942, and then briefed Pohl the following day, setting off a flurry of activity. On March 10th, 1942, the IKL ordered 2 Auschwitz officers to head for Ravensbrück to get acquainted with the running of a women's concentration camp. Soon afterwards, Johanna Langfeld, the senior Ravensbrück camp supervisor, travelled in the opposite direction to oversee a new women's compound in Auschwitz. She was joined by more than a dozen female guards from Ravensbrück. When Langfeld arrived, the Auschwitz SS was already preparing the new camp for women, initially in blocks 1 to 10 of the main camp. On Rudolf Höss's orders, a wall was hurriedly erected to separate it from the men's section. The scene was being set for a huge increase in female prisoners during the second half of the war. So we shall return to that. I think particularly when talking about Auschwitz and the Holocaust in general, there are problematic elements to it, I think. And for me, they are kind of like this. So much is written about it, and this is not a bad thing, but the boundaries between academic learning and sort of the kind of more sort of prurient, kind of macabre culture that surrounds it are becoming increasingly thinned. I mean, this is a lot to do with TV histories, things like the TV channel, which is very often kind of recycling endless documentaries about, you know, the Nazis and the Holocaust and all that kind of stuff. You know, these are important things to learn about and to know about, but they are not the sole and the sole locus of all events in the 20th century. And one can develop a kind of like a slightly skewed view of history if that becomes your kind of your North Star almost. There are fictionalizations, things like the boy in striped pajamas, which even amongst kind of survivors and the relatives of survivors is decried as a kind of preposterously silly book. And then there are kind of dramatizations of memoirs, some memoirs of, you know, the scholarship around them is kind of challenged. There is, you know, in every kind of Waterstone's 3 for 2 table, there is the something of Auschwitz, the tattooist of Auschwitz, or the cellist of Auschwitz, or you know, the something of Auschwitz, and so it becomes hard to find something that's kind of substantial and useful to historians that observe and are able to kind of mentally hold the horrors of all of this, but also to try to explain its nature and process, which is kind of, I hope, if you're listening to this, the kind of business we're all trying to be in here. And then, of course, you have just the kind of the horrendous dregs of humanity that are kind of engaged in Holocaust denial, which, you know, despite the fact that David Irving died the other year, seems to kind of have a healthy new lease of life every year, courtesy of social media. So that's why books like KL, and there are a number of others I think which are worth looking at, are really, really valuable guides. You know, they are the kind of point to true north. You know, everything in history writing is to a degree subjective, but it's a book worth kind of putting store by. Anyway, I don't get commission on any of these things, by the way, so I just speak as I find. So I'll catch you on the next Explaining History podcast. We're just in the processes of trying to set up a study course for January. Hopefully we can get it done that time. Not a study course, but a study event on the Russian Revolution and Stalinism thereafter. So if that's your cup of tea, keep your eyes peeled, because there will be something pretty cool coming for January, and I'll be doing a live event. Anyway, take care, everybody. All the best. Bye-bye.
And now, Superhuman Shaq.
I keep telling them not to say that. I'm no superhuman. Believe it or not, I struggle with moderate obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. In adults with obesity, moderate to severe OSA is a condition where breathing is interrupted during sleep with loud snoring, choking, gasping for air, and even daytime fatigue. Let's just say it can sound a lot like this. Sound familiar? Learn more at don'tsleeponosa.com.
This information is provided by Lilly, a medicine company.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Explaining History. This podcast is an independent production, and it's listener support that keeps these conversations going week after week. If you find value in the show and want to help cover the costs of research and production, please consider making a contribution. You can join our community on Patreon or make a one-off donation. Just follow the links in the show notes for this episode. Every bit of support is truly appreciated. Thanks again for listening.